Oh, folks, I just want to apologize to you. I was so happy to have Tanya in the studio, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the internet kept playing. I've never really had this problem so bad before. It crashed literally over 10 times, which was really quite difficult because sometimes I didn't even notice it had crashed. So, we're free flowing. I'm listening to a wonderful dialogue, and then boom, I realize we're not recording anything, and then we have to start all over again. And it made for a very disjointed and difficult conversation from my end. I think Tanya found it quite entertaining to see me struggle like this. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if there's some roadworks or the internet's down in my area, but it was just really annoying. So what's happened is I've got lots of little clips which I need to somehow stitch together that still sounds coherent and not random, and there's no words just being chopped off at the end or mid-sentence, so the whole thing doesn't sound like it's making sense. I haven't looked at the clips yet. I think it will be a bit strange and it won't be a completely natural flowing podcast. I'm really sorry. Please stick with it throughout the podcast. Tanya just, goes into these beautiful, eloquent, articulated little spiels, which are just brilliant, full of nuggets right till the bitter end. So, while it is difficult, forgive me for the technical challenges and stick with this podcast because it really is lovely. And if you can, check her website out and, you can meet her in person. There's several gigs that she's doing with Alistair Williams. Check her website, taniaedwards.com, I believe it is. And all the details will be in the show notes, and meet her in person. She's, a remarkable woman, and yeah, into the show now. But until then,
it's pretty impressive, to be honest. It's good.
Is it?
Yes.
Do you know this was a hobby?
Podcasting.
Yeah, this was my hobby. So, I'm now patching things up with the missus, okay?
Yeah.
Having been jabbed and everything. And then I said to her, listen,
We started?
Yeah.
Oh, you were allowed to say that, are you? I'm impressed.
Yeah. And then I said, look, I've done a post on X and now I've got like 50,000 followers. I've got an audience. I want to speak the truth and I want to find out the truth. And there's a lot of people I don't trust, and I trust myself, and I'll make mistakes, but at least I'll be honest about it. So I'm going to do a podcast if that's all right. And if I can't do a podcast, I want a motorbike or I'm going to have an affair. And then she went, well, have your podcast. So This is the podcast.
Might still have the motorbike and the affair up. You don't know what this podcast will bring.
Nah, you know what? Having worked at the spinal injuries unit, the National Spinal Injuries Unit at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital, and seen the number of motorbike victims, drivers, paralysed from the neck down, I have no interest in getting on a motorbike.
I don't know. My friend's son lost his face. He wasn't wearing a helmet. He lived in Thailand, and he has no face. They managed to reattach his nose, but it's the whole face has been sewn back on.
Face off.
And now face on.
Whose face is it that he's got?
Well, his own, but it's white. And he's young.
This is what I mean.
This is a depressing start.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know where the conversation's going to go. Yesterday, I had this guy in from Australia. His name's Tim Manger, and Beat the Reset. And I thought he's all about bullion and gold. And so I thought, great, that's all the topical thing now in economics. The gold price going up, silver. We'll talk about that. No. For the 2 hours, 1 hour and 1.5 hours, he just spoke about Antarctica and the ice wall and what lies beyond. And I was like, what? So I never know what my guests are going to talk about.
Well, what would you like to talk about?
Well, let's talk about you.
I'm just doing the same sort of thing, really. I'm a stand-up, obviously, and I lost my. I don't know. Lost is probably the wrong word. So obviously, I didn't like the COVID stuff either.
I saw that right from the get-go, lady.
I have an argument sometimes with my friend about which of us got it faster, and we're both in at about a week. I think I was 5 days before I started to think it was strange. He was 6. But yeah, my whole extended family and my in-laws, they're all in the NHS. And I thought that that was interesting, especially with hindsight, actually. But at the time, my brother-in-law, he was put into a COVID unit with all of the PPE, and he obviously believed everything because he was staying in a hotel to not infect his child who has asthma. And he would wave at his children through their window. So you had all of the drama of this fantasy. And I think it's intriguing if you look at how they separate out the specialties. So he's actually an acid reflux specialist at the very top of his game. And he's put into a COVID ward where he is obviously not familiar. And they've also changed the protocols. So I don't want to talk about him specifically, but if you look at Italy, because they're more confessional people because of their Catholicism, the doctors were out in the street saying that they killed their patients because they followed a different protocol to the one that they knew was to be correct. They started ventilating their patients. But we have never had those conversations here. And I think that the truth is not necessarily what we want it to be, but it has its own compensations. You know, once you're telling the truth, even if it's not how you like it, it can carry you through. But I think it's very hard for people that have built their own reality to go back on that. I know people whose parents were hospitalized that, one specific person whose father was in hospital and he was put on a ventilator, but he survived. But you could never tell that person that his father was lucky to survive ventilation and that the COVID wasn't the issue, because that is completely anathema to his whole lived reality.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I'm in a different situation to lots of people, and that most of my loved ones and my friends have very much taken the vaccine, and they really do. They're not like your wife, who's at least come around to your point of view. They very firmly are friends with me, but on the proviso that I've lost it to some degree or other. They're not going to come to my point of view. In fact, I was out with a girlfriend recently who's seriously successful, and we were coming through the train station and she wanted to get some free Haribos for her son. She'd already managed to secure some free Haribos for her daughter. And in order to get these free Haribos, because she just loves a freebie,
who doesn't?
She had her photograph taken, she scanned a QR code, she was putting in her telephone number. She just lent me an inordinate amount of money, so I was in a position to buy her some Haribos. But for her, she wanted it to be for free, or free of charge. And then it got to the stage where it was taking so long for her to go through this rigmarole that the guy who was giving her these free Haribos kept suggesting that she might be about to miss her train if she continued, and that she could possibly just have the free Haribos without going through all of this farcical self-identification. Anyway, eventually she got the free Haribos without having to give the final code. This was the second or third code that she had to give. And she was really pleased with herself. And I thought it was dreadful. And she thinks that I'm uptight. And she even brought up the COVID thing. She said, oh, this is just like you with COVID. You can't just accept things for as they are. I didn't even have to he didn't even get all of my details in the end. And I think that these things that are being put in play aren't really about how many details you get from a person. They're more to see how prepared somebody is to not notice that they are complying with essentially an entire social credit system to get some sweets. And they can't see it because they think that to even notice it is to be difficult.
Bingo. Do you know what? It's funny. My in-laws are also very much in the medical system. And I remember at one point I mentioned that, I'm really concerned about these COVID shots. And I was like, I just heard a comment, oh, you sound like Andrew Wakefield. It's like,
good man.
Yeah. And it's just funny the conversations I have now. And, there's people in my family now, in-laws, who will admit that, there's a problem with the vaccines and they're not going to have any more. And there's a problem with the RSV vaccine, and even one of their friends has died from it. And I was like, wow, you definitely are relating that to that. They're not just, oh, no, they were fit and healthy and they died of the RSV. I'm not taking any more of those COVID shots. Oh, I don't believe in the flu shots. And I was like, this is great. It's like, you do know when you were a vaccinator in the COVID center, you never obtained informed consent from anyone. I was like, yes, I did. It's like, really? What's in the vaccine? Spike protein. All right. Anything else? How much is made? How long for? What's the safe upper limit? What's the turn off switch? What's the antidote? Can you tell me anything about LMPs? Bait and switch? The DNA contamination? I could go on and on. The 40 different oncogenic methods of cancer.
I bet sometimes you do go on and on.
And yeah. And at this point, they just looked at me and went, oh. I went, yeah. Well, I didn't want the COVID shot. I only took it so I could vaccinate in the vaccination center.
Well, I heard...
But you hear the logic of that. I didn't want it, but I only took it so I could give it to other people, something that I didn't want myself.
A friend of mine said that she gave her son the HPV vaccine.
Okay.
So without realising or even considering the fact that he didn't have a cervix, but I think that I vaccinated my sons with MMR, only the first dose for my second son, and I allowed the hospital to vaccinate him on his first day of life with the BCG, which isn't even advised, and he had serious repercussions from that. And I still went on to give him the first dose of MMR. So I can't pretend.
Do you think that's what made you wake up to all of this stuff or not?
I knew that, the BCG was a terrible, terrible mistake. I'd never even had a paracetamol during my pregnancy. I didn't take any painkillers to give birth, which I mention every time I get a chance.
Warrior.
And I don't. And I still allowed them to do this on bad advice from a family member. And then he had very serious repercussions from it. And I was told then when he was really ill, oh, this is the number one cause of parents harming their children because he had chronic colic. And then I said, I'm not going to harm my baby. I just know that there must be something I can do about it because its only food source is me. So it must be something that I'm ingesting that's aggravating his skin. He had boils on his eyelids and he was screaming for 10 hours a day. I said, oh no, that's just baby acne and it's just colic and you just have to wait. And I ignored them. I did an elimination diet until I was crying over a piece of dry toast, wondering what on earth I was doing wrong. And it turned out that he was lactose intolerant. And that was fascinating because I realised how many things I just ate off the floor. When you're breastfeeding, you just pick up a piece of buttered toast and eat it off the floor. But I stopped doing that so that as in my other son, was still eating butter. But I still injected him with the MMR because it didn't occur to me that the whole system is flawed. And obviously now the idea of putting a poison of any description into clean baby blood is obscene to me. But people have known about this forever. I don't know if you're familiar with the little pamphlet, The Vaccine Watchman. It was written ages ago, 100 years ago, I think. And he was talking about these initial smallpox vaccinations. And one doctor had killed 11 children in one day and just hadn't understood it. He couldn't understand why all 11 children died. And it was a scandal, but it continued to go on. And now this is venerated in our schools and our textbooks. And it's interesting. I was taking my children home the other day and we walked past a post and my elder son said to the little one, there's rust. And he started to tell him that rust is very dangerous and if rust gets into your blood, I said, don't tell me. There's a medicine that can help you out. And he said, yes, there's a vaccine.
Oh, God.
And they are getting them on every single level. So in these childhood primers that your children can look at to learn how to read, a vet will be landing in Africa on the savannah and immediately injecting a buffalo to save the herd. And everywhere that you look, there are these promotional materials for vaccines. So I've been reading Astrid Lindgren to my sons. She wrote Pippi Longstocking. Even in Pippi Longstocking, they talk about vaccination in her. And I love this character, Emil. She wrote these books, Emil. He's the only character that doesn't seem to be drugged. But in the other one, Lotta, they're playing with injections and needles. And I don't think that she was controlled opposition necessarily. It's just so...
cultural indoctrination.
I think so. But it's in all of the books. And now it's definitely deliberate because you don't need to teach a child to read with a vet randomly injecting a buffalo. It's not even realistic. Who goes into a herd of stampeding antelope to vaccinate?
It's madness, and that's not the only one. I know they're attacking children, but it's in all forms of mainstream, so TV and media. So I watched a TV series that I really enjoyed called Yellowstone. Don't know if you've heard of it.
I I'm famous for not watching any kind of television.
Okay.
I'm so difficult.
Okay. Well, Yellowstone was a great TV series, and the other ones as well, 1883. It was just beautiful. But there was one scene in, not Yellowstone, I think it was 1883, so way back, or I can't remember which one, but one of the actors in the program gets bitten by an animal, and the doctor says you need a rabies shot or vaccine. And she doesn't want it. She's pregnant. She goes, I don't want. And they take this big syringe and stick it into her abdomen. And this is like from a long time ago. I think it is 1923 or 1883. So a long time ago. And they were like, we need to vaccinate you. And she's crying. She goes, don't vaccinate me. And they literally forcibly hold her down and vaccinate against her wishes. And she needs like 5 shots. And by the end of it, she's just quietly resigned to the fact she's getting this vaccine shot. And the mother-in-law is like, look, it's for your own good. And they portray her as being hysterical and crazy because she doesn't want this injection.
But do you not think that even the purpose of that scene is to demoralize the individual?
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's pre-predictive programming. It's like, vaccines are great. You're an idiot if you refuse it. There's nothing wrong with you. It's perfectly fine to hold you down and inject you against your own will because we know better, and to give you a sense of helplessness.
But I think that this is to suggest to somebody that any kind of resistance is futile. We're told it all of the time. And it's they actually published a paper because, like lots of people, I was trying to prove myself wrong for the first 3 or 4 months of COVID. So I did everything I could to prove that I was mad to myself, which would mean that the world was the right way up. And one of the papers I found was a consultation at Oxford University about how they could mandate vaccines. And the rationale was that you were allowed to medicate people who weren't mentally fit to make their own medical choices. And obviously, if you were not in favour of the vaccine, it would mean that you were mentally impaired, and therefore you could be vaccinated against your will. So, but what was the purpose of that? It wasn't because they were going to do it. It was to make someone like me think that there was no point in saying no. And what I have really seen over the last few years on every project that I've worked on is the shamelessness of cowardice. And I think it works on many levels. I don't just think it's the people that go along with things. I think it's also that it's easy to be the only renegade in the room. It's actually not that difficult once you've accepted that you're going to lose your age and lose your close friends and fall out with your family. It's not that difficult to persevere. But it is hard to work with other people that have made the same decision, because if you're with too many of those people at once, what you have is a new society. And if you have a new society, you need a secretary, and there's a lot of admin involved. And we are reliant still on the systems that exist, that we're choosing to be on the outskirts of, but we don't really want to make our own, because however much you love one thing, do you love it as much as do you love it more than you hate admin? I think most people would rather still work with the system that's there for ease.
Convenience.
And so that they can say what they wish to say without having to do the slog of creating a different reality that might be better or might be worse, but has its own risks involved. And I think as well, for me, which is different for you because you had your audience on this new platform of ideas that you had, but my ability to talk to people was literally unplugged. If you're a stand-up and you're not booked, you're not working. So obviously you find different forums. And I think that my purpose is probably more local anyway. I think my purpose in life was probably just to dissuade a couple of Uber drivers from getting vaccinated. And if that's what I was here on earth to do, then I've succeeded.
But did you not find that Uber drivers were the least likely to get vaccinated anyway?
I think that you had as the government would call it, a big problem with non-white uptake. So I definitely know amongst my Muslim neighbours that they didn't take the vaccine because it wasn't in their faith. And black friends of mine were more sceptical. But it depended how high up the comedy ladder they were. If there were enough carrots dangled, they
Really?
changed their minds. Yeah.
Muslims against their faith. I know a lot of Muslims who took the jab happily.
Really, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's nothing in the faith that says you can't have a vaccine.
Well, I'm not suggesting it's in the Quran. I'm,
Do not take the vaccine.
I'm saying that the possibly a more cynical attitude.
Yeah.
Or certainly, if you have a God, then you're less likely to worship at the altar of science.
I also, 100%. But I also think if you're working class, you're kind of immune to the indoctrination that educated people seem to get.
Oh, it was definitely a middle class pathology, yeah. So,
And I know people who, in my extended family, are very religious Church of England goers. And they say things like, there's too many people on this planet and we need to worship the holy vaccine. And I think it's the most ungodly, unchristian thing you could do. But hey ho, what do I know about Christianity then?
well, I was looking for a church at the beginning of this because I saw the whole thing as the Antichrist. Because when I was small, I was religious, and the hymns that I used to sing were hymns like, when you needed a neighbour, were you there, were you there? And I thought, this is so bizarre. It's the antithesis of everything I know to be good. Well, I was a very, very smug atheist. There is no other kind. And I was arrogant and articulate, real poison. And but it was so clearly anathema to anything good or noble that I thought it was the Antichrist. And I was looking for a church. And I remember taking my sons to one church, and they prayed to the vaccine. They gave thanks to it. And I went, oh! My son said, what happened? I said, your brother wants to leave. And I scooped him off and we walked out of this church. I thought the church is lost, because here our church is it isn't it's just clinging to the residuals of a notion of community.
Can you imagine tomorrow we've got the second coming of Jesus, right? It comes down and there's,
you have to have the Antichrist first.
No, and it'd be the midst of a pandemic, right? And he goes, forget washing the leper's feet or whatever and all this kind of stuff. Where's my PPE? Where's my alcohol gel? I want a social distance. Can I have my screen mask, please? And I need my vaccine before I go near anybody. Can you imagine Jesus saying that?
Well, no, he said pick up your pallet and walk. But it's even that. It's I remember this woman, she was training in the church that I now go to, and she said, oh, please stand if you're able. She didn't need to add if you're able. It was pure narcissism on her part. She wanted to be putting something in that showed how kind and good she was. But it was a nonsense, because there wasn't anybody in that room that was going to say to the elderly lady with a stick, oh, you too, you lazy cow. You know, it was nonsense. It was purely for herself. But I think most of these things that we're encouraged towards at the moment are narcissistic. Even the grand melting pot that is London now, I think some of the enjoyment of that is narcissistic, because if you don't really know your neighbours and you don't share a language or a culture or a religion, then you don't have to know if they're good or bad people. You can just be delighted in yourself for thinking that everyone is equal, without the judgment that you know is yours if you have an accent that's recognisable or a style that's recognisable. This the conformity to the democratic ideal where everybody is the same is actually just a way of escaping into gazing at yourself endlessly without having to judge or discriminate or discern. And I think it's too much responsibility for people now to have an opinion that hasn't been liked 10,000 times on some sort of social media platform.
Yeah. Can we go back a bit about the vaccines?
Yes, sure. I promised I wasn't going to keep talking about these for legal reasons, but here we go.
Nothing's new under the sun. So the vaccinations have been going on for about 200 years. I mean, I've had Roman Bristianic and Suzanne Humphreys on the show. They wrote the book Dissolving the Illusions that vaccines are amazing. And it goes back. The history is incredible. It's all documented. You got lovely black and white pictures as well. And you had an anti-vaxxer movement, an anti-vaccination movement at the same time as these people wanting to poison everybody. And nothing's new. It's all the same. No mandates. We don't want to wear a mask and stop these forcible injections. And we don't want poison in our body. It's all there. And I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Rudolf Steiner. Have you heard of him?
I certainly have. He's responsible for that hideous museum, the Goethe Museum.
Well, eliminate the soul with medicine. More than 100 years ago, Rudolf Steiner wrote the following: "In the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine under the pretext of a healthy point of view. There will be a vaccine by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible directly at birth, so that the human being cannot develop the thought of the existence of soul and spirit. To materialistic doctors will be entrusted the task of removing the soul of humanity, as today people are vaccinated against this disease or that disease. So in the future, children will be vaccinated with a substance that can be found precisely in such a way that people, thanks to this vaccination, will be immune to being subjected to the madness of spiritual life. He would be extremely smart, but he would not develop a conscience. And that is the true goal of some materialistic circles. With such a vaccine, you can easily make the etheric body loose in the physical body. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton. For the physical body of man must be polished on this earth by spiritual will. So, the vaccine becomes a kind of Ahrimanic force. Man can no longer get rid of a given materialistic feeling. He becomes materialistic of constitution and can no longer rise to the spiritual." Wow. Okie dokie, little break. Folks, as you know, I don't have any sponsors, so this is my own ad. If you're looking for answers for your medical problem, if you want a second opinion, if you're, potentially going for surgery, or you want to review your diagnosis, pick my brains. I offer a consultation service. Visit docmalik.com and you can find where to book. And you can check out over 70 reviews. I've, helped a lot of people out there, ranging from every kind of medical ailment you can think of. And I'd love to help you too. So if this resonates, check out my website. And I just want to say thank you to someone who's just subscribed to my Substack. I've just read their message. CJ writes, "I've enjoyed listening to your interviews. Most are not too scary, so I can listen at night, especially with your gentle and well-spoken voice." Well, thank you very much. "I admire you for not compromising your ethics, but it is sad that you're no longer able to use your surgical skills. Such a waste for all UK citizens and taxpayers. Keep up the good work and stay safe." Thank you so much. So folks, if you want to support the show and listen to the full episodes, please check out my website and sign up to my Substack and become a subscriber if you can. Or if you want to listen on Spotify, sign up to my paid channel. And if you want to support me in other ways, check out my website and look at the affiliate codes that I've got. I work with some amazing companies that my family and I use, and I can't recommend them highly enough. And there are discount codes for you, and obviously I get a low commission for every sale. Okay, folks, I hope that was quick and didn't interrupt your show too much. Enjoy the show. Bye-bye.
He's a neurologist. I said, "Oh, my son's a daydreamer." And he said, "Oh, you can give him medication for that." And he said it instinctively. He wasn't trying to be critical. He just knew that there was something that you could give your child to stop them daydreaming. And I think that at a very basic level, yes, of course, you can corrupt people with medicine. I'm not sure that we'll ever reach a point where God can't save someone's soul if he chooses to, but you can obviously make that harder. But on a more general level, I think that it begins with the idea of the relativity of truth. If you can't believe that there is one truth, then you're basically saying that you're an atheist. Because if you believe that there is a God, then you believe that there is one truth, even if you're never going to approach it yourself, even if you can't understand it yourself, you know that it's there to be reached towards. And so firstly, you have just the idea that everything is relative and that there is nothing to aspire to. And then at the same time as that idea, you're fed the idea of progress, which is a lie. The idea that progress is just automatic and that we're evolving into something higher by virtue of doing less and less. And so psychologically, you have those two things happening at the same time. So you have no truth and you have no God, and everything is relative. But obviously that creates a vacuum that we fill ourselves with ludicrous idols. Obviously all of the revolting people that you see in the public eye, but also on a more fundamental, basic level. Whenever anybody's frightened of anything, obviously when you have a baby, you look to someone better than yourself to make sure everybody's okay, and that's the doctor. And obviously, with rare exceptions, you being an exception that obfuscates the rule. But most doctors, in my experience, are thick. And
I concur.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that means that they're not likely to stand up together and say, well, wait a second here, we're doing something wrong. All of our patients are getting sicker because they see the fact that they have patients is that they're there to provide a service, that they don't notice that no one societally is improving. And I think that the other way that you're eroding the soul is to make things ugly. So it's not just that everything we're building is so repugnant, it's that we're hiding all of the beautiful things. So a beautiful girl now has a tattoo of a teardrop on her eye. Anybody that can contain their emotions is ignored, and anyone that spills them out on Instagram is celebrated. There is the idealization of shame. So it's now almost de rigueur to have some sort of pitiful story. And obviously none of these things are going to bring anybody joy in themselves. Nobody loves you if you're down and out. It's true. And so I think that, everything is an exchange of energy, and whining doesn't whining doesn't really work for anyone. It worked for Princess Diana, but even she ran out of time. I think that the things that we're being told that are good, or that you should share, or that you should open up, or everything is only going to bring you the opposite of what you're seeking. So yes, I'm not disagreeing with Steiner, but I don't think it's just on the medical front. I think it's across the board. I can't see anything beautiful being created. It's interesting. I always talk about the same piece I read by Philip Sherrod, great writer, I recommend him, about the meaning of the word originality, and that today we think that doing something original is doing something new, but actually the etymology of the word original means going back to your origins. So on one side, you have Michelangelo reaching out to God, and on the other, you have the monkey throwing shit at a wall. You've got Jackson Pollock. And I think that if you look at the whole movement of modern art, where it became prints, someone like Damien Hirst, it's just prints. No one's pretending that he's making them. It's just what looks like paper chase paper that's being made in a factory. And to even understand it, and it's always that you don't understand something. Your initial reaction, your instinctive reaction, your receptivity to beauty is now supposed to be a symptom of your lack of education. So all of this modern art had to be accompanied by huge explanations of why you were so stupid that you couldn't grasp the beauty in the ugly. And the inevitable endpoint of that is artificial intelligence art, where obviously everyone can stick a tampon on a canvas. And so you need a long descriptor of why that's important. But really what you're doing is eroding people's instinctive taste.
Repulsion.
And yes. And now you have the same person that can't even distinguish themselves now from an artist by their own lack of ability. They can just say to a machine, draw this or make that, and it's produced for them, and they think they've created something. But they haven't. They've actually had their creativity severed. And I think that in your own creativity is probably where you have your relationship with something higher than yourself in that moment of making something that doesn't exist if it doesn't come from within you. So I think we're doomed across the board unless you want to show your children beautiful things so that they naturally keep hold of the discernment that they're born with.
Bingo. Yeah. It reminds me last week when my 7-year-old boy came up to me. He was reading something in a book. He went, Dad, do you know somebody stuck a banana onto a piece of paper and sold it for £120,000 at a gallery? What a stupid thing to do. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like modern art, my little boy. The thing is, you never forget your gut instinct. Your gut instinct tells you when something's beautiful and when it's stupid or ridiculous and nonsense. But the thing is, we always override it. Now, you talk about doctors. You said the reason why doctors don't see it. I think it's more nuanced because I know a lot of doctors and I've been through the system. they're all trauma-based mind controlled. They're all...
I was going to say, I think it's also because if you put somebody under high pressure for a significant period of time, where they have to absorb a lot of information, they cease to think. So it's a bit like knowledge is really the end of wisdom. If you look at something like the quiz, my mother's obsessed with Richard Osman. She loves him more than me, but she loves watching these game shows, and she likes to send me countless messages about which of my fellow comedians doing better than me because they get to be on Richard Osman every day. But this idea of just regurgitating information, but it having no relationship to the world and not meaning anything, it should be a terrible screeching sign that all is lost, but people just enjoy it, and they enjoy the ping, ping, ping.
Do you know, on day one, pretty much every med school, every medical student is told on the first lecture that you're the top 1% of society, that you're the cream of the cream, you're the smartest of the smartest. And it's the beginning of the indoctrination and the hubris and the arrogance. If I was the dean of the medical school, I would say the first lecture is, hey everybody, you're fresh-eyed, fresh face, bright-eyed little kids. You think you're amazing, you're getting into med school. Just know that, do you know what? Doctors have done some serious dumb shit over the centuries. Like arsenic, cocaine, trepanning, scrambling your brains, lobectomy, vaccinations. Oh, and we can go on and on. So folks, if you think that was just in the past, do you know what? The sad reality is we're kind of doing it now as well. So have a bit of hubris and have a bit of humility. So have a bit of humility instead of hubris. And think every day, what is it that we're doing today that in the future our colleagues will look back at and go, oh my goodness. That's what I would do. I would temper that, but they don't. And so they come through trauma-based mind control, really abused through med school. It's awful. Then they work grueling hours, and then they're forced to comply with protocols and guidelines, straight-jacketed.
They have to change hospitals.
They have to change hospitals every 6 months.
Don't you think that that's extraordinary?
Absolutely.
Everybody now is encouraged to change constantly, when actually that just means that there are no repercussions for anything, because you're always set free from what should be your development and your suffering. But I think psychologically everybody seems to have bought into this idea as well that you have to break some eggs to make an omelette. I know a good man who told me, well, of course children would die from vaccination, but they have to because you need vaccination to save more people. And I thought, this is really bizarre. He genuinely doesn't understand that if you wanted to take that sentence and put it in a different context, he is saying, sacrifice a child to Malik to worship this great God. He couldn't comprehend the wickedness of what he was saying.
Because they think it's amazing. But by the way, changing the hospital is actually normal because you do want to learn from lots of different people. So it's like an apprenticeship. And if you just stay with the one person, then you only ever learn what they knew. So the more people you can learn from, the better. And there is accountability because you can follow up and you're tracked and your training program monitors everything. So it's not that. But the thing is...
Well, you say I'm not disagreeing with you. I am actually. I am disagreeing with you.
Go for it.
I appreciate that you need to learn with different people. But this idea that you have to achieve that learning, you have to go to a different space constantly. I think it's severing people from their roots. I think that there is a humbling in people knowing your family and knowing your weaknesses and knowing what you did wrong as a child. I hasten to add, I left everything. Every time the goings ever got tough for me, I've moved country. I've never been somebody to learn. I've always been someone to leave. I can't leave now because I have sons, but I would if I could. I would be off somewhere now.
So I know what you're saying, because I was the person moving every 6 months, and normally you stay at one hospital for a year, and it is very traumatic getting up and moving. It's very difficult, but you're in a training program and all the consultants know each other from all the different hospitals. So it's not like you just move on and can't follow up. And that, I think that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is you're not allowed to think autonomously. You're not allowed to critically think. You're meant to follow the guidelines. You're meant to obey. It's very hierarchical. You're meant to do what your consultant tells you. The consultant does what the management tells them. And the management dictate.
Joining the army.
Yeah, based on what the NICE guidelines tell you. And the NICE guidelines are 3 doctors, all with conflicts of interest, all with research grants, and heavily tied to big pharma. So the conflicts of interest and the corruption is centralized so that a few people at the top can dictate to 300,000 doctors how to practice. That's the problem. There is no art of medicine. Doctors cannot work autonomously. They're meant to just follow the straitjacket. And there's no such thing as first do no harm to the patient. It's first do no harm to my registration and license, first do no harm to my salary, my mortgage, my student fees, my career prospects, my pension, my mortgage, my holidays, my private schooling.
That would be limited if you were stuck in one place having to suffer the same people, because it would reduce the admin. I think that admin in that respect, I'm not talking now about doing the basic stuff for yourself, which is what most of us are frightened of, but certainly this anonymous machine that even the people inside it, they don't feel responsible for it. I'm now talking about all of the I think we're reaching an interesting point. I mean, it's a sad point, but it's interesting. So if you look at the art, you had before someone like Tracy Emin, the whole point of her being able to have her unmade bed, which anybody could obviously have, is that she was actually a really talented artist that had chosen to become famous with an unmade bed. So there was an idea that there was at least a skill that you had to sabotage to have this piece of crap. And then now, of course, we reach the end point of that, which is that nobody even needs to have had the skill that they're sabotaging. They don't even need the bed. They just need to say bed to a machine, and then the machine makes the bed, and the bed is still unmade, and everyone can celebrate. And but it's we're now that we're getting to that point where it's really anonymous, but people feel so vain at the same time because of an algorithm. That's sort of being amplified in the whole way of educating our children, the whole testing system, the whole multiple choice system, the shallowness of absolutely everything. And the reality is that people feel that they're more known because they have more followers, in inverted commas, but really they're becoming more and more anonymous. They're becoming less and less relevant. They're not even relevant to their own family, because however interesting they are or whatever they've done that day, Richard Osman could walk into the sitting room and unbalance everything. So it's I don't really know how we escape from that unless we grow tomatoes in the countryside. And obviously that would suit some people better than others.
We do.
Yeah. Well, it's very pretty. I have to say, it's completely idyllic. You have chickens. I hope you haven't registered those.
No comment.
And it looks very homely.
It's nice.
Homely.
It's nice to hear that, because I look at this and think, oh man, when am I going to get my 5-acre homestead with my goats and land? That's what I dream of.
I do love goats.
That's what I want. I love and baby goats. I love the noise they make. But listen, I'm going to have a little ad break right now.
Oh, okay. What are you advertising?
You.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
What a fabulous idea.
So what was that word you just used? Please just tell me, what was the last word you just said?
What are you selling, Doc?
Yes, tell me about your little comedy tour.
I love when you said little.
You really dropped yourself in that one, didn't you?
Put me down a bit. It's okay, I can give it, I can take it.
Right, you're back on. That was a bit random. Suddenly it just dropped. Anyway, you're telling me about your wee tour.
Yes. Stop calling it we.
Your massive international tour.
Well, we have gone all the way to Ireland and Scotland. Does that make it international?
Yes.
So Alistair Williams, British Comedian of the Year, and myself, we've been doing a tour because we're doing one more in London actually in March the 7th. How quickly is this going out? We're doing one in Norwich on Thursday.
Very soon.
Oh, excellent. So this Thursday, the 5th, I can't remember the date, the 5th of February. Are we in February? Oh my God, I'm so lost. Anyway, we're going to be in Norwich this week, and then a big one in London on the 7th of March. And we're going to Bath, Southampton, back to Scotland. Scotland was fantastic. Your country is a good country, Doc. We've been having a good time.
You need to stop. I don't know what's happening with this internet. Okay, listen, I'm sorry. I think it's now back up. I'm not 100% sure. It seems to be recording. Fingers crossed. Right, you're saying March, London.
Yes. So Thursday, 5th of February in Norwich, then March the 7th in London, April, we're in Bath. I can't remember. All of the dates are on my website, TaniaEdwards.com.
TaniaEdwards.com.
Yeah, and Alistair Williams is absolutely on fire. The thing about doing anything like this is that you get better, and but he's unfortunately really getting better as well. We were in Chichester where my father is, and the venue was too small because he told his friends about it, so he sold out too quickly. And but I didn't have a great show that night. My family, for all their faults, they're very honest. And my father said, well, Alistair was so great that everyone still had a good time.
Ouch!
But maybe it's fair, you know. But generally, I'm doing really well. I don't mean it like that. So we're both having a good time. It's been really interesting as well seeing where our audience is because we don't know. So turns out not in Torquay. But we've had a really good time, and we're both turning over lots of new material. And yeah, I probably need to. My friend said, you just need to do the whole start all over from scratch, just because you get bored of stuff. But it's been a really good time to write new material, I think.
How long have you been a comedian for? Like, when did you start, and what made you, and what were you doing before you became a comedian?
Well, and by the way, I'm completely haunted. You've got a model of a foot behind you.
Yeah, I used to be a foot surgeon.
Oh, because I broke my toe last September.
Oh.
And since I broke this toe, there isn't a man under 165 kilos that hasn't trodden on it. Or everybody, I've kicked it against every
It's like a magnet, isn't it?
My children stand on it and say, isn't it curious, Mummy? We've never trodden on your foot before, and now we tread on it every day. It's
typical.
Yeah, why is that? Make it stop.
It just happens. Yeah.
So before I was doing stand-up, when I was young, I loved acting. I did a law degree, God knows why, but I was always on stage. Theatre was my life. And then I went off it quite dramatically and fast.
Why?
Don't even know, really. I used to go to the theatre a lot, a couple of times a week. I just was always watching something on stage, and I saw a play. It might have been this play. It was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and everybody was from somewhere different, and one person lost their American accent, and the whole cast lost their accent simultaneously. One person was suddenly Irish, one was from Essex. It was absurd. I think that the quality of things was going down. Listen, I took my son around to drama school the other day because he's a genuinely brilliant performer. And it was a lovely school, and he'd probably do very well there. But there's a serious risk if you've got that sort of training that you would end up in a play. And I don't want him to be in the theatre. I want him to be an ornithologist or something more natural, something real. And I was writing a lot, and I thought I'll be a writer. I've always been writing since I was little. And then I was sort of temping between writing jobs. And then I realised I was really writing between temping jobs. And I knew this chap from a writer's course at the Royal Court Theatre. I used to call him Mr. Plan B because he was already teaching. He was going to be an actor and a writer as well, but he was teaching to earn some money while he was pursuing the dream. And I used to call him Mr. Plan B because I thought, why on earth have a backup plan? I was always at plan A.
So he wasn't your plan B?
Well, no, but I would kiss him occasionally because he was so tall. And when I was in this awful office, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll Google Mr. Plan B. He'll be just as miserable as I am. And I'll go out with him for a beer and he'll tell me I'm fantastic and I'll be able to leave it for half an hour and everything will be right with the world. And he'd won the Perrier for his double act comedy. And people have been telling me to do stand-up for years. And it's pretty basic stand-up. You're in a basement or in a pub. It's very humble. I know it looks flashy to the public now because they see drivel on Live at the Apollo. They think I could do that. And they could. They're absolutely right. It's crap. Nobody on the circuit thinks it's any good. But the actual circuit is a humble place. And I had big ambitions in my fantasy world. Anyway, I was so jealous that he'd won this award. I had a sort of panic attack. And I called up my friend and I didn't know what was happening to me. And she said, you're jealous. And I knew that she would know what she was talking about because she was jealous of everything. And I went to see him that week, do a gig, and everyone was so nice. Maybe I was more humble myself by then. And it was really real because you're liked or not liked on the spot. And it's an energy exchange. I find this more and more. When you're in a room of people and you're smashing it, you basically feed off the audience. It's quite parasitical in that way. And if you're not smashing it, they're feeding off you, and you're exhausted. But it's a wonderful thing, especially for a young person, because it's so exciting. And obviously there's no risk, is there? You feel that everything's at risk, but it's purely phantasmagorical.
Well, most people have gone to have a laugh, so they're already,
But also, it doesn't matter.
What were we talking about? I can't
Stand
remember.
up.
Stand up.
I was just saying there's not really any risk. You have all of this. Are we going again now?
Yeah.
So I was just saying that.
By the way, apologies to everybody. The internet keeps crashing. I don't know freaking why, and it's driving me insane. As you all know, this doesn't happen. Having talked about James Delingpole and what his tech issues are like now,
James.
Now I'm getting that. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm bringing it to you.
Right.
I bring the bad tech vibes everywhere. But at least I got to hear about how you seduced your wife across the operating table. So
no,
it's not lost for me.
I know. I never seduced her.
Oh, really? Just what nonsense.
Basically, I cracked a joke, as surgeons do at the operating table, and she found it mildly offensive.
Excellent. What
And
was
so,
the joke?
I can't remember.
You've got to remember.
I can't.
And
then
might be able to use it on
all
Thursday.
I remember is she kicked me under the operating table.
That's
So
what you want.
my junior doctor kicks her consultant. She was my trainee.
And you
At the time.
thought, this is so fit.
I was like, what the what's going on here? And
This is
then
what you wanted, a woman with no boundaries.
that's it. And then I went off to Utah, Salt Lake City for 2 weeks.
What a huff.
Yeah, to spend some time with this professor. I was so upset. So I'm in Salt Lake City, and she just keeps texting me and messaging me non-stop.
My God, this is inappropriate. You should have had her removed.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, why is she messaging me all these things? And then she was following me on Instagram. Then my sister was saying, who is this person following me on Instagram?
I mean, most people would be nervous at this point, but you thought, I'm in there.
I just thought, she's a funny one. And then after a week of being away, I was like, oh, I do miss her.
How did you manage to miss her? Because she kicked you once.
I just missed her. I just did.
That's nice. I'm assuming then that you've been working closely before she kicked you under the table.
We've been working for about
fine.
5 months.
Well, you didn't say that. You didn't say you were in such an intense relationship for 5 months. So when she kicked you, you were thrilled.
And then when I came back, we only had 2 weeks together, and she was then moving on.
Of course, because you have to move hospitals.
And then I thought, actually, I'm not going to be her boss anymore. Maybe I'll ask her out when she's left.
Oh, okay. I like the way you're covering yourself there.
But it's true.
Yeah.
And I just got divorced. She's just got divorced, and I'm like, let's hook up.
So much in common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our first date was hilarious. Before we even sat down and ordered our food, we were just like, right, okay, do you want to get married? What do you think about religion? How many kids do you want? When do you want to have the kids? What are the important things in your life? All this, we were just like bang, bang, question after question. And then we were like, this could work. All right, should we order now? I think it's because we'd already been there and done that. We didn't want to waste our time with something that might not have anything in it.
Don't you think it's interesting now? Imagine now if you, I'm sure it won't happen, Doc, but if you did divorce again and were lucky enough to meet another woman who had also just divorced again and you had the same conversation, it would be very different now. It would be, how do you feel about vaccination?
100%.
What do you think about the elite who's really running the world? Do you watch television? It would be very different. It would be a shorter chat.
Do you think the planet is flat or not? Did we go to the moon or not?
Do you know what?
We did not go to the moon.
Of course we didn't. But of course we didn't. But this is fascinating to me. So people always think, oh, what should we do and who are they and yada 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 yada. And I think that the things that we can do are quite small.
Yeah.
Obviously the clear stuff. Use cash. Don't engage in screen time. And by the way, that's not because brilliant, talented, amazing, extraordinary people don't work in that industry and don't make amazing stuff, but it's because of that. It's because there's so much good stuff that children are being taught to emotionally self-soothe with a screen, and it's changing the balance of human relations in a way that's not going to serve us well in the future. So I think if you're trying to future-proof yourself, it would be good if you could understand the difference between fantasy and reality. I was sadly, she's just died, but I was visiting my godfather and his wife, who's got Alzheimer's or had Alzheimer's, and my father and Robin, they used to be writing partners. They were sitting there reminiscing about the past, with Helga, who couldn't remember her past, and my father and Robin were chatting, and their chat, they kept forgetting everybody's name. It was hard to work out who was actually suffering the most memory loss, but they were chatting about their lives, and into their conversation came all of these people that were basically television characters. And I understand that our whole perception now is punctuated by these people that aren't real, in the same way that conversations must have in the past been punctuated by the lives of the saints or by actual mythological characters from our local village. And now we can't discern between what's true and not true. But there was the moon certainly is an example of a lie that we're all supposed to be complicit in. So that's what troubles me most. It's not that some people have the courage to accept the choices that they make and try and forge ahead with them. It's that they are supposed to be complicit in somebody else's lie. And the problem with lying is that it makes the thing that you love ugly, because you can't look at it for what it is, because you're looking at it through the perspective of your relationship to it. And the moon landings is a lie that we are all supposed to be complicit in. And my mother knows how I feel about the moon landings, and I cannot tell you how passionate she is about the moon landings. I love the moon, I just don't think we play golf on it. And she's always gifting my children books on space, and my sons can't do anything. So my son was wearing his aviator goggles and his new aviator hat, and she said, you need to be a pilot before you can become an astronaut. All of her conversation is punctuated by this. And I recently started my Substack up again because I thought I ought to be producing some content here. I've lost my only paid subscribers. Not that you get anything extra if you pay, but I do. And I thought I'll start writing again to build up my subscriber base. And I published this piece about the moon because...
I read it.
Oh, did you? I hope you didn't read the email. I corrected it. I sent it out too fast. But anyway, I wrote this piece, and I thought it's because I've become so paranoid now, for various reasons that we shan't go into, but I've become so paranoid that you could even lose your children if you don't subscribe to the moon landings, or if you don't want to inject them with everything under the sun, or if you don't want to put them on drugs for nothing. And I thought, this is becoming absurd in my own mind if I can't make a joke about something I think is a farce, because I'm anxious about how I could be misrepresented. Well, it's not really a misrepresentation, is it? It's a correct representation of the fact that I think it's a crock of shit. Anyway, I just noticed that I'd immediately lost a paid subscriber. And I thought, that's odd. Well, you won't believe the paid subscriber I lost, Doc. You won't believe who was actually giving me £4.99 a month.
Your mama?
Yes. She cancelled her subscription. Anyway, I thought, this is wild. And I saw her the other day. Now, she says that she didn't cancel her subscription because of that particular piece. She says it's because she was waiting for a taxi, and on her phone flashed an IQ test for £1. And she thought she had 10 minutes to wait. Be quite interesting to do an IQ test. She's not done one of those before. So she did this very complicated IQ test, all sorts of things you had to answer, spatial questions, different problem solving questions, etc., etc. And you won't believe this, but it turns out she's one of the cleverest people in the country. And she was pretty pleased with herself. She took a taxi, swaned about the rest of the day, realising she could be a Mensa. And a few weeks later, there was a payment she didn't recognise, and she asked the bank about it, and she'd been charged $29.99 by IQ.com because
naughty.
What they've done is lured people in with this IQ test for £1 and told them how clever they are, and then siphoned an extra £30 out of their account because, as smart as they were so busy doing the test, they didn't have time to read the small print. So it's possible that she'll start giving me £4.99 a month again.
So did she just cancel all of her bank?
Well, that's what she's claiming. But do you believe it? I'm a coincidence theorist, and it's quite the coincidence.
I do believe her. So I'm having this guest on my show on Sunday.
Oh, right.
You ever heard of him?
No,
He's
Moon Man.
He's quite famous, Bart Sibro. He's been talking about moon landings since, well, the moon landings. I think he either got punched by Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin. I'm not sure which one. But yeah, he's passionate about it. And he breaks down why we never went. But I'm with you on that. We did not go. We did not go there.
You won't believe it. I didn't realise.
Oh wait, no! It's just stopped again.
It's okay. We got quite a big bit there.
You said where are you gonna start again? You said, all right, okay, listen, everybody, I'm so sorry. This, as you know, this doesn't happen, right? So I don't know what's going on. You were saying.
Well, I'm completely unfazed by this internet thing. I think it's terrific to see you struggle a la Delingpole. So I'm enjoying myself immensely. In fact, I've relaxed. Now, I was saying, I love it. The more you sweat, the happier I am. But I was saying that it's funny how I found out about the moon landings, because I was again reading a non-fiction primer with my son, and it had this absurd photograph of a moon buggy in the dust. And I have managed to zone out of all moon-related conversations with my mother my whole life. And my son said to me, is this true? And I burst out laughing, and I said, sure, why not? And then after he went to bed, I actually went and watched the official NASA footage. And it was so clearly farcical that I never needed to read anything about it or think anything about it. It's quite evidently untrue. And I think that's why the more of these books you have, of these high gloss photographs of this extraordinary stuff, it's the only time that they're not constantly whipping out the films. You know, they have films for absolutely everything now. You can't read about anything anymore. Everything is supposed to be on the screen, unless it's the moon landings, and then it's all posters and reproductions and books to give something credibility. That's something I've definitely lost. I'll never, ever finish a book that is rubbish again. I used to have that thing, I don't know if you had that, where you start a book and you have to finish it.
No, I'm not. No, I ditch it. I'm the kind of guy who will walk out of a cinema after 15 minutes if I don't like it.
Yeah.
And the same with a book. And I'll give an example, quite relevant. Oh, actually, before I talk about that, I just want to say this book is amazing. And he goes on about why it's so important to debunk the moon landings. But in the same way, it's important to debunk COVID vaccines and 9/11 and all the other biggest lies that we've been. Because once you understand how authority and the media and the military industrial complex and everybody can lie to you, and the psychology of how everyone can be lied to and swallow the lie, then when you wake up to that, then everything in the world starts to make sense. And you can only start to correct all the problems in the world if enough of us wake up to the bullshit that's going on.
You see, I think that's interesting, because for a lot of people, it is too much.
It is.
It is too much. And the fact is that the people that are now realizing that some of these things might not be true or might not be good for them, when they turn to us to have that conversation, we're so much further along now that there is no hope or solace there for them. And I think that the biggest problem in the COVID period wasn't necessarily, the whole purpose of the lockdowns was to drive people into poisoning themselves. I think that we probably agree on that. But that one of the alarming things that happened in that period was that people were so desperate that they weren't just prepared to take any kind of drug, even when they were openly being told it was experimental. They were also quite prepared to send you to the gulag. They would absolutely have delighted in never seeing you again, because they specifically saw you as being the problem. And the interesting thing for me now is that I think possibly there is a space for light-hearted dismissal of all of these things without suddenly feeling obliged to explain the world. Because if you broadly agree on lots of important things to people, like which is a preferable cake and how they want their coffee, and you just don't believe in certain things, they feel safer than if you actually have a whole explanation of the way the world works. And I've been, I don't know how familiar you are with apocalyptical literature, but I've been working on a longer form piece that's probably going to be a short form joke and then a longer piece. But I think that the idea of the end of the world is, in some, if you want to look at it metaphorically, it's that this is the end of the world as I knew it. For me, this period ended everything. It ended my marriage. It changed my career. It changed the way I saw everything. And a total unveiling really should dictate a completely different life. I should have joined a convent, but I couldn't with my boys and my beauty routine. So I think that the problem that some of us are facing is that we still have one foot in our old world and one foot in the new world, which we're not quite sure what it is. And we don't really know who we want to bring with us. It's the rapture with no rapture. It's very confused. And you're managing to bridge the gap between both things. But I think we're very dependent on the people that we want to leave behind. And the people that we'd like to bring with us, we probably could only bring too fast. I don't know how you navigate that in a way that's going to prepare yourself for the future. You would be very upset, Doc, if you were unplugged. You've managed to make this work for you. You've got a big audience. You've got a good career. You're doing something that you love. You're invested. You're pleased with yourself.
But I had everything taken away from me.
And are you able to have it taken away from you again? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So
yes.
And
I'll tell you
what
why.
do you do?
I'll tell you why.
Good. Yes, let's hear it.
Listen, Tanya. I've been knocked down so many times. I can't even begin to count. So many times. And I've had to pick myself up so many times. And I've had to rely on myself. I've never asked anyone for help. I've never had any help from anyone. I've done it on my own back. And you know what? They can take this all away from me again tomorrow. I'm one resilient motherfucker. And I will not ask anyone for help. I will pick myself up again and find the right people in my tribe. You're talking about navigating between the two worlds? When I left my first wife, it's very painful.
Sorry, every time you say that, I want to laugh, and I don't know why. I'm sorry, Doc.
It's all right. It was very painful, very painful. It was a very difficult relationship, abusive. I had enough of that one. But the thing is, all my friends believed that she was this innocent person and I was the bad one. So I just completely cut out. My whole social circle, my whole life had to start all over again.
But you can't do that with children.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is then when...
It'll be harder to get rid of the second wife, that's what I'm saying.
I'm not getting rid of her. She's amazing. And when I lost my career, at that time, I also lost a lot of people who I thought were my friends. And these things that happen to us are the great revealers. They really reveal who are your friends, who you can trust. And I've lost those friends, but I have made so many new friends. It's unbelievable. It's really funny. I used to tell my kids, guys, it's not important how many friends you have. It's quality friends. Look at Daddy. Daddy's not got that many friends. It's just a handful. And now they say to me, Daddy, you're a liar. You've got so many friends. I'm like, yeah, actually, that's true. And that's the thing. I found my tribe. I found, and the friendships I have now are so much more deeper and so much more real. Whether they be Marianne just down the street or Nat Bradbury just down the street, or Nicole Nason just down the street that way, or Darren, or whoever, or across the world, those friendships are so much deeper. And Harry's like my brother. I didn't have these friendships before COVID. In a bizarre way, I freaking love COVID. It freed me from the medical cult. I am earning a third of what I was earning before, but I'm fitter, I'm healthier, I'm authentic. My wife is awake now. She loves what I'm doing. My kids, I get to spend time with them. So I feel like I'm not holding back. I'm not putting my foot in the old world. I've moved on. And if they take me down, fine. Do you know what? I'm not what's happened to me. I'm who I choose to be. And it has happened to me so many times. And I don't want to go through the different cases. People have heard it all. So that's my story. I'm just telling you, I'm very resilient.
Well, I don't think I've ever loved like I love now. With everybody's weaknesses, but I don't think I'll ever have faith in another person as long as I live. Not the faith I had before.
Okay, well, maybe it's different. Maybe the faith will be different. And what do you mean by faith in someone?
Well, I just think that everybody has, I think, I accept people more. So I no longer think that people will behave or should behave as I imagine that they would or think that they ought to. I think that it's not really like that. That doesn't mean I love people less. It's just different.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean that there were certain things I believed, that I trusted that people would behave in a certain way or that they would understand things in a certain way. And that's not the case. And I don't see why it will be different. So maybe you think, oh, if everything went to shit tomorrow, I could begin again. But I think you might be shaken just because.
Of course.
Yeah, so I wouldn't put my faith in people so much. I think that people can do amazing things to the maximum of their ability, but I don't have the same faith in them. I don't know how to describe it. I have faith in God, which I didn't have before, but I just don't see people the same way.
I think we're flawed as people. I think I've always been putting a high bar on myself. One of the mistakes I used to put, especially as a consultant, was to place a high bar on all the team around me when it was unfair on them, because I was already putting a very unrealistic high bar for myself.
It's like you putting this high bar on your internet connection.
Well, it should work. It should work. And the thing is, I make mistakes. I regret things that I've said from last week. So.
Oh, I'm not talking about regrets. We all have days.
And mistakes. We make mistakes. I'm sure you've made mistakes.
Yeah, many.
So you just have to accept that other people will make mistakes too. And that's just the way things are. Yeah. Whether it's friendships or relationships. But then there's difference between mistakes and I think breach of trust. Because when you lose trust and respect, I don't think you can love anyone. You need both. You need trust and respect. And you can't really respect anyone if you can't trust them. So you need trust, you need respect, and that's a very important foundation for love. That's what I think anyway.
It's very nice.
So
I think you should write a self-help book.
So I surround myself with people that I love.
Are you going to do that, Doc?
No. Definitely not. No self-help books. Right, anyway, listen, I wanted to talk about Epstein files.
Oh, well, you're talking to an ignorant person who thinks it's just more nonsense.
I think you're right. I think it's partial release. I think what they've shown us is just a little tidbit. There'll be no accountability. There'll be all the really important, juicy, relevant things where people are manipulating, designing and planning and plotting and conspiring against us. It won't be the end of just throwing some scraps.
I think you summed it up there with the word juicy. So people are too susceptible to gossip. But if you look at the whole Hollywood nonsense. I'm not talking now about our version of the Hollywood nonsense. I'm talking about the official version of the Hollywood nonsense. It is a bit like modern art, only it's happened faster. That there's so much rubbish and so much ugliness in it. But people are fascinated with who's sleeping with who was mean to whom on a set, who did what in what plant pot. They love that kind of gossip. And then for all of the people that took all the red pills or all of the black pills, they haven't actually relinquished their attachment to that gossip. They haven't understood how irrelevant to them it is, how far away it is, how it's feeding parasitically on their attention span, how it's absorbing their energy that could be better spent elsewhere. They just are enjoying a juicier kind of dirtier gossip. It's no longer who's sleeping with who, it's who's fiddled with who, or who's abused who, or who's been passed around by whom. And I think if anything, it's more dangerous for the human soul than the crap that other people are listening to. And I've just considered the entire Epstein farce. I just consider that like people suddenly believing in Trump. It's all theatre designed to parasitically remove your energy from you. So I haven't given it any thought, I'm afraid. I'm sure all of these things go on or don't go on. I have zero there's not even one part of me that imagines anybody is going to be that the truth is going to come out.
Well, there's stuff that I found out that was relevant to me, basically. So.
Oh, really? I'm interested in that. You tell me what was relevant to you, Doc. You got on Epstein's plane. Don't tell me. I knew there was a reason your podcast was so successful. You're on the flight records.
It's not the MI6 agent sitting in the corner, my handler.
No.
So basically,
I thought he was just looking after your chickens.
No. Basically, when I was suspended from one of my hospitals, another hospital, this time on grounds of anti-Semitism, not because of what I...
Sorry.
Look at Tanya laughing.
Yeah, it's just that you've had quite a run of it. Yes, anyway.
Yeah. So, this is my second hospital, so I've been accused of an anti-vaxxer by another hospital and transphobic by another, and now...
Oh, but so are you all of these things? Or are you secretly pro-vax?
Do you know that the truth is anti-Semitic?
Really?
Yes.
That you are anti-Semitic? Or...
No, the truth is anti-Semitic.
Oh, well.
Okay.
I don't know where to go with this.
Okay, just don't go anywhere. No, I don't like any vaccines now, and I would never want any vaccine injected.
I don't like any war. So if that's what you mean by being anti-Semitic, then...
No.
Conflating the war and anti-Semitism.
No. You either get it or you don't. So anyway,
what did you do?
So what I did was I had a guest on my show.
Didn't want to work with any Jews.
No, a guest on my show called Ava Bartlett, who's an independent journalist, and she, after October 7th, was commentating about what life was like in Israel and Palestine and the occupied territories and what the reality is for your average Palestinian. And she said that there were some officials in the Israeli government who were actually openly saying we should ethnically cleanse Gaza. Just get rid of them once and for all after October the 7th, which is factually correct. And you can go on the internet, you can find...
Well, I've heard people say it,
Yeah, so what happened was I was contacted by two Jewish surgeons immediately after that podcast, and they weren't happy about it. And the next day, my private hospital wrote to me and phoned me up and said, you're suspended, you're not allowed in the hospital. Anonymous complaints that you're anti-Semitic. And I was like, what have I said or done? Like, I'm not anti-Semitic. I've treated Jewish patients all the time and colleagues. So...
People are so frightened of that phrase. It's interesting. Even when we did our apocalypse.
Well, let me finish.
Yeah.
So 6 months they investigated me. They listened to all my podcasts. This poor guy.
Great. I think there's.
And then said Ahmed Malik isn't anti-Semitic. Neither is his guest. And I've not found anything in his podcast that were anti-Semitic. Anyway.
Did you get paid for that break?
No.
That's outrageous.
So having lost access to one hospital and now being denied access to a second hospital, it in effect killed my career. And I knew what was happening. If I'm going to speak up and tell the truth, I'm going to have these constant anonymous complaints, which this was not the first anonymous complaint, suspension, investigation. It was just getting tiring. And having spoken to lots of doctors from around the world, it's the standard playbook. Anonymous complaints, suspensions, investigations, and the processes of punishment. You can't earn any living. You have to fight it, courts, lawyers, everything. So I actually just handed back my medical license at that point. I'd been doing this podcast for 8 months. I was really enjoying it. And I thought I either stop the podcast, which is what's causing all the trouble, and just carry on with my job and pretend and take the money, a lot of it, or I just stop and speak the truth and fight for my children and try and create a better world. Yeah. So I left, and then I contacted Toby Young of the Free Speech Union and said, can you help me? I've been a member for over a year. Free Speech Union. I mean, it's free speech. And it wasn't even my free speech. It was my guest's free speech. And I got punished as a result. And, it's just destroyed my career. Anyway, I can't take on your case. I'm really sorry. I mean, you've got a lawyer already. And I went, we haven't done anything. I just had a friend. He's been helping me as a lawyer, but we haven't officially started anything. No. This isn't something we could take on. But, I wish you all the best. And I left it at that. And I always thought that was weird. And But you know what's come out of the Epstein files?
What?
He was emailing Epstein.
Who?
Mr. Toby Young.
Yeah, but people
Friends,
that for ages.
And he's a Friends of Israel. He set up the Friends of Israel company.
Well,
he's a rabid Zionist.
Well, I was a big fan of Toby Young. I think he's a very amusing guy. I like him in real life, but he had his Lockdown Skeptics newsletter. And I said to him, I told him, he asked me what had changed my mind about him. And it was that in one edition of this newsletter, he started pitching the vaccine. So someone had, but slyly. So it's one thing to do it openly, but this was subliminally. So it was much more deliberate and painstaking because he's a smart man.
Well, this is where you're different from me, because I never really liked him. I thought he was a bit of an annoying git.
Well, I'm being diplomatic.
And then when the Free Speech Union came along, I went, well, maybe there's something good about him. And then he's just revealed exactly who he is, and he's a bit of a...
But in this newsletter,
not a fan.
Someone had died in the in one of these trials, and it was the double blind trial. It was the one where you couldn't know if they'd taken the placebo or not. And he published in that newsletter that they had definitely taken the placebo, which either it wasn't at that level of the trial, in which case it's a lie, or he couldn't possibly have known that they had taken the placebo. So it was completely untrue. And in the same newsletter, there was a postcard from a reader talking about the vaccine miracle. So I think that all of this stuff about controlled opposition or this or that or the other is nonsense, and as much as everybody can be controlled by whatever it is that they fancy that day, cup of coffee or someone telling them they're wonderful. But I again, that's another example of someone that I had thought as an external person, it was, a good person trying to do something useful, and then just saw as a different way of selling a vaccine.
Yeah, well, the problem that I have is that I thought there were a lot of people that were with me on Team Humanity when it came to COVID and the bioweapons, the vaccines, so-called vaccines, which are genetic bioweapons. I thought they were with me and people like me on Team Humanity. And then Ukraine came along, and then Gaza came along. And then I realized they're not on Team Humanity, they're on Team Zionism. And that's the problem that I have with Zionists. When it comes to it, when it comes to the crunch, they will choose Team Zionism over Team Humanity, which is really, really disappointing. There's a blatant genocide, and it's not difficult to see. It's not right. October 7th was a complete staked goat event. It was, their equivalent of 9/11. And, it was used as a pretext. And for people to just ignore that. And I find that really annoying and a bit disappointing in people. Anyway.
But there are two things happening there. One is it's the same idea that you lose a life because you have to do so for the greater good. But it's just being extrapolated and extended out to entire nations. So if you, obviously, I know you're familiar with what's happened in Ukraine with the digital ID and how people had to take the vaccine suddenly to get their money because there was a war, economy, etc. But it's more than that. It's this idea that the pacifist has basically been murdered, even in polite conversation. So I know Russians and Ukrainians because of the cosmopolitan school that my children go to. And really, honestly, people have there is no limit to the revenge they're happy to imagine on other people's behalf. And certainly all of the stories that we're told now that are supposed to justify a war in Afghanistan or justify a war against the citizens of Gaza, I don't even know how you can call it a war when a war implies two armies. So even the word war is a lie because it's suggesting that there are two armies or any chivalry or any kind of process of rules in place. But actually what it is just a story to justify murder. But if in your heart you can't accept that violence is wrong, I had an interesting chat with somebody who was explaining why they would have to be violent if someone was trying to get their children or do this or do that or do the other. And I said, well, if all of these conditions came to pass, it wouldn't make any difference what you were doing with your spade because everything would be lost already. But people cannot understand that they should turn the other cheek. They can't. I do believe that's a superior idea of Christian theology over other faiths. I do think that you should renounce violence. And I think that until people can accept that even in their own hearts as a basic moral principle, they're always going to be susceptible to a story. Because if you think that murder is justified sometimes, then I can always, I tell you, write you a story that will make you be able to justify mass murder, whether or not people are armed.
Yeah, shame a lot of the Christian, colonialists and priests didn't know about this when they invaded the Americas and elsewhere. But anyway, I actually don't believe in that Christian story. I believe that Jesus was a badass and a freedom fighter and a rebel. I mean, the guy who was throwing tables up in the temple and fighting the Roman Empire. I think
he
the
didn't,
real story was.
He didn't pick up a table and smash it.
Oh, whatever. I never said he smashed
So
a head.
are you pro-violence sometimes?
I'm not pro-violence, but I would fight for freedom. I would rebel against an oppressor.
But okay, so
If someone came into your house and was,
so you're going to do it?
no,
Okay.
was going to do something, threaten your child, do something, kidnap them, what would you do?
Well, you've just literally described the story you said was nonsense.
What do you mean?
Well, you've just said violence would be necessary if someone came into your home and kidnapped your child. And I'm saying that's the story that only moments ago you said was...
I know, but first answer the question, what would you do?
I would try and save my child, but I wouldn't... I'm saying that if murdering someone isn't going to get me out of that situation.
I never said murder. I said sometimes you'll need to use force to defend yourself and your loved ones.
And I am saying that until we can renounce the idea of force, particularly now when everything, the law, the wars, everything is psychologically we're accepting that we can only have our morals if we have the most force behind us. And I am saying that until we can renounce that idea and say I'd rather die than use force, then we will always then have a story to quickly follow on with our principle, which says someone's just come into your house and kidnapped your child, you have to use force.
So I'm not using force. I'm not fighting physically with anyone, and I don't believe that we can overthrow the tyrants that rule us with force.
Nor do I.
They have all the guns, they have all the weapons. We can't do that.
Kidnapper either. No, I don't.
Well, my wife and I do jiu-jitsu, so we could. I'm sure we could do that.
You
But
can do it without really.
what I'm trying to say is,
jiu-jitsu, it's not
I
a
don't know.
serious sport.
I know. Well, you don't know what jiu-jitsu is.
It's so easy to wind up.
I'm not being wound up. I guess a lot of people genuinely don't know what jiu-jitsu is about. That's why. So, but I'm just saying the story of Jesus and Christianity, all organized religion, I'm very skeptical of. I just feel like we're being told stories. Anyway, moving on.
To jiu-jitsu.
COVID diaries.
Corona diaries.
Yeah. You had a review by someone that you were very happy about. A Mr. Will Gompertz. Remember he left a review? BBC arts correspondent.
I never actually read the review. I just took the stars and stuck them on my poster, and they're still there. In fact,
so you had it on Instagram, on your Instagram post. You went, I can't believe, great to have a review from the BBC arts correspondent Will Gompertz about.
Yeah. So when
that's my wife's uncle.
No shit. How funny. So
Yeah.
when everything locked down, I was stuck in my house. My baby was a baby. And
6 months old or something.
Yeah, yes, he was still a baby. I hadn't. It was before I gave him the name. My mum, do you know, I actually wrote a paragraph about how delighted I was to chat to the nurse about, 4 painful jabs for him and exciting chat for me. I mean, it makes me want to be sick. And I can't close my Instagram account. I offered prize money for this. If anyone can work out how to close my Instagram account, I'd be so grateful.
You can just delete the post.
I can't get into it.
Oh, you can't get into it?
I haven't been able to get into my... I can't believe you don't know the story. I talk about it all the time. I can't get into my Instagram account. It's there. People message me. They offer me gigs through it. They can't understand why I don't get back to them. I technically exist there, but I can't get in to close it.
Just put in your email address.
I can't get into it because I shut Facebook years ago and they're connected. Anyway, let's talk. This is not interesting because I've talked about this so many times. I'm so upset by it. And I always, whenever I bump into comedians that are making a killing on social media and they just can't believe how well they're doing, I always listen to it.
That's spiel. You've not posted on Instagram for ages.
About 4 years. And that at the end of all of these conversations where people bang on about how brilliantly they're doing on social media, I say, and do you know how I can close my Instagram account?
Why don't you just open a new one?
I don't want one. I want it gone.
Oh.
But yes, I wrote these Corona diaries it was basically about my mother being on her exercise bike and me waiting for everything to reopen. And that was when I genuinely did think for at least a week that it was a hospital building project and that people needed somewhere to die so that I could go back to work. And so that they're interesting to read back because I, even when I knew that something was up, I was still, writing for my readers, which were people that were really into it. And I think we underestimate how much people loved lockdown. For me, I obviously didn't like it. But I was very sick, and I think that's curious too. I think that the way that whole, obviously some things now are absurdly ridiculous, Boris Johnson suddenly wheeled out of hospital, the Queen's wheeled into hospital. I can't even remember which way around they did it. Some of these things are so stupid and required such naivety. Obviously, the news isn't serious. You know, you can't have someone reporting war and a sex scandal and a football result all in the same breath and imagine that you're being informed and that you're supposed to be rational. You're obviously not being rational, i.e. you're being titillated. So the news is obviously crap. But it's obviously rubbish. Just from its format, you can see it's a lie. Yeah.
BBC up there.
Oh yes, Bob's on the wall. And so I think that you can. I think anybody with even half a brain can see that they're being moulded, not informed. That doesn't change the fact that people still listen to the news and think that they should be. The optician's next to my house, we pop in there sometimes to see his dog, who recently was dog napped, but not when we were there. So we were in, and the dog was very much back and present and correct. But the optician's assistant went to get the optician to tell us this exciting story about how his dog was dog napped, and he'd become completely obsessed. I'm actually going to write about this, but he'd become completely obsessed with all of the terrible things that happen to these dogs that are kidnapped. They use them as bait in dog fights. They breed them. They do all of these awful things.
Oh my God.
And but his dog was fine.
Okay.
And he said to me that he was already having therapy, and now he could talk to his therapist. Right? Actually, this is going to make a funny blog, but how he was now talking to his therapist about the dog napping, and so basically talking to the therapist about things that hadn't happened to his dog. And he said that the main reason he was seeing the therapist was to stop him watching the news so much because he was too involved in the news. And I looked at this man who could not be less involved in world events. If he couldn't be less involved in world events. And he's got a therapist to help him feel less involved with world events because he can't stop watching the news. And I said, well, I haven't watched the news in years, just don't watch it. And he said, but you have to be informed. I said, but you're not being informed, are you? You're being wound up. But we don't seem to be able to relinquish our idea that
I'm the
that's
same
the
as you.
truth.
I haven't seen the news for absolutely years. But again, it's always when I go to the in-laws that I hear the news. I don't watch it, but I hear it. But
I did believe it-ish at the beginning of the COVID thing.
Dun. Have you heard the introduction of the news now? Like, it puts the fear of God into you, and you're like, oh my God, this is the news?
But it's wild that it's I don't know if you've disabled that thing on your telephone that lets you hear an alarm. But
Yeah, I've disabled it.
I was in a restaurant with a friend, and the whole restaurant suddenly started going beep 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 beep, and this Australian's like, oh my God, it scared the life out of me. I can't do an Australian accent. I really wish I could. And anyway, obviously that's the point of it. Everyone was supposed to be frightened. Nothing had happened. That everybody was alarmed, literally. And if you don't watch the news and you walk through a room where the news is on, it is just like that ding 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 ding. They might as well have a drum roll, and it's completely hilariously stupid.
It is. And it's also hilarious how addicted people are to it. Like, they need their regular fix of fear porn. It's like, what's wrong with you?
And they think that their own intelligence is dependent on how informed they are. And by the way, I used to be one of these people. I watched Newsnight.
Me too.
I watched
broadsheet papers in the weekend,
I read
pouring
them
through
all.
every single supplement and extra. Yeah, I know. I was that idiot too.
But it is tiring for the people that haven't been on our journey, that they can't even moan about Trump without my eyes glazing over. I'm just not interested. I think it's
all pantomime.
It's
all pantomime.
But they have got both sides of it, by the way.
I know they do.
So all of the musicians I know, with few exceptions, they, especially the super leftist ones, they really fell for that idea that Cheltenham Festival was going ahead and the government didn't care about them enough. They really believed it. They wanted more. They're so infantile. And they think that they're outrageous, and they think that they're on the periphery, but they are simple, actually simple. And then on the right, I don't know what happened. I don't really think that there is a right.
They're Fabians.
I mean, the
wolves in sheep's clothing.
The whole thing is a joke, but it was fascinating how easily played they were. Especially, I mean, you even had Trump and Boris. They were clearly there for the same purpose, to drag in those people on the right that wouldn't have been dragged in by someone on the left. They were even looking the same, and they were being as preposterous as each other. And people here were laughing at Trump there, and people there were laughing at Boris Johnson here. not realizing that they were literally laughing at their own, the opposite version of their own, puppet that was
wild, crazy hair, overweight buffoons,
but also really appealing to
boisterous, populist,
appealing to the
jokey.
sense of humor. Though.
Yeah, I know.
Now that's interesting. What's happened on the circuit is that I have seen, which you read, but I have seen a few people now making jokes about 9/11 and stuff, and these are the same people that went along with all of the COVID things, and that is interesting because it means that I think even if it's only short-lived, for people to like, I think for people to like you and know that you don't subscribe to all of these paradigms is helpful. I think that any kind of contradiction or paradox for the conformist mind is wild. I think it's like an explosive. I think it's something like that could make the difference. She's so optimistic. I'm talking about myself in the third person, but I think I am still optimistic. I keep thinking that I'm going to become more cynical, and then I think it's not possible. And then I have a flash of optimism like that, and I know it'll fade by tomorrow. But I think that these people seem to be so conformist that these very small disruptions seem to disturb them more than something extreme. A woman came into the exhibition, and she had gone along with everything. She'd worked through the lockdown. She was a headmistress. She'd taken the vaccines. And a good friend of hers had laughed about the moon landings, and she hadn't wanted to fall out with them. So she'd gone home and she'd researched it herself. And by the time I met her, she was looking at navigational maps of the Arctic, and she was looking at weather plans and flight paths. And so but it was something really small that set her on her own journey. And I sometimes think maybe we can get a few people like that, but I'm not certain. Maybe there'll just be a small community at your homestead that you're going to buy when you leave here. You get, how many acres are you after, Doc?
5 to 10.
5 to 10.
What country would you go to if you could leave anywhere? Go to anywhere?
Well, I think that you should stand your ground. I think I should stand my ground. So I believe that I'm all right with languages, and I love Italy. Then I think that you're never going to be as quick in another person's tongue to understand how the people there are being manipulated. I don't know if you know Theodore Dalrymple, but he's written most incredible books about communism. He was a prison doctor. He wrote under the pseudonym, and he was one of the first people I looked for in the COVID period to see how he reacted. I assumed that he would get it. I didn't. If anyone in the world was going to get it, it would be this writer. And he absolutely didn't get it. He thought that the vaccines were a matter of life and death. Like
Bernie Sanders, Noam Chomsky.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that those are real, actually good people. But yes,
I know I've changed my opinion of them completely. Absolutely.
But I also was wondering if it was because he was living in France, and you just have a certain respect for your domestic situation when it's not yours, that you don't necessarily have in your own country. So I didn't have the same respect that I would have had if I'd been abroad. And I'm better with my language, my own language. And I think that the outrages, like the weather manipulation or the manipulation of information and the manipulation of our children, I think that my understanding of that is more profound, and that might make it harder, but it will also make it, I think it's a worthier battle to fight.
Well, I agree. And I think the other thing as well is, for the first time in history, the problem is global. It doesn't matter where you go. And what's more important than anything now is finding your community, people that you can rely on. And I've got that here. I really do. So as much as I would love to leave this horrible weather, I know actually there's a lot of horrible weather in other parts of the world as well. They're spraying the skies. It's just, it's miserable. Anyway, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, do you know what? I really admire you.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
No, I mean that.
Why? I get the giggles every time we say something actually serious.
I know, what is it? I'm making you giggle.
I'm going to kick you under the table.
This is a big table. So
I've got very long legs.
The reason why is, I think you're very articulate. I think you're very switched on from day dot. I think you're very principled. And I think you're going through a really fucking shit time, and you're still just getting on with it. No, you are. I remember going through my divorce. I'll say it again with my first wife, because it'll make you giggle. And it was a fucking painful time. painful. And that you've got kids as well. It's not an easy thing to go through. And to stand on stage and make other people laugh. Do you know what?
The
Well
divorce
done.
is all right. It's more
Well done, you.
the medical establishment is not our children are.
By the way, just take it. It's a compliment.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Thank
one
you. Much appreciated.
tough piece of shit. And
Yeah,
just
excellent.
love you for it.
Very difficult to scrape off a shoe, but I do think that it would be wonderful if everybody could try and help each other take the child off the table, because the children are the battleground of all of our ideas. And I think especially because now these drugs aren't recommended anymore for everybody, we're forgetting that they're still being administered every day, and that there are people fighting for their own children to not be poisoned as a default position. And I think it's I don't think it's something that can be got rid of. So it would be good if fewer people had it. That would be that if people wanted to know what to do. I think helping people not have their children vaccinated it would be a great start for you.
How about that?
If you wanted a course, I think it's especially when you say something in principle, but you don't understand that it's a living reality for people all around our country and all around the world. That'd be great.
So I'm really upset with the medical profession. I left because, not just because the hospitals were making life difficult for me. I was reaching a point where I was just sick to death with them. I didn't want to be associated with them, because the more I've learned for this podcast, the more disgusted I've been with my profession. You know, it's not just the vaccines. We're pushing puberty blockers on kids. We're pushing antidepressants on the kids, anti-anxiolytics, SSRIs. You ever heard of something called PSSD?
No, tell me.
So,
cheer me up, Doc.
All these kids on antidepressants because they're feeling depressed, they can get something called PSSD, and what it does is it stops you feeling anything, like sexually. So you get numbness in your genitalia, you lose your libido, you lose attraction. So you think initially, oh, maybe I'm not heterosexual, maybe I'm gay. And then you go, oh, I'm not gay, actually I'm non-binary. You can't have anything. And by the way, there's no cure.
They had posters on the underground. I have talked about this before, but it's true. It's truly horrific. They had posters on the underground, and if you're familiar with the way the tube works, that part where the advert is slightly bent.
Yes.
Concave, isn't it? So, and they had a man looking down with his arms crossed, and so it looked from my children's perspective as if this man was looking down and talking to them. And he said, how do I explain that I'm not ready? And it was another one of these pseudonyms for sex. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't asexual or pansexual. It was a different kind of sexual, where basically he wasn't, this adult man wasn't ready. And how would he explain that? And I saw this picture, and it was like a man was saying to my child, how do I explain to you that I'm not ready for sex yet? And the word itself wasn't a real word. So it's the kind of word that if your children are learning to read, they want to know what it means. And this is grooming.
Yes.
And you do not need to have a 50-foot poster of a condom on an underground wall. You do not need to have any of these pop songs being shown in schools when it rains outside, or children can just get wet. You don't need a flag that matches the colours of the vegetables that they're supposed to eat at lunchtime, talking about adult sexual themes when they're 6. So all of these drugs are just part of this grotesque assault on the sexuality of our children. But when they're pre-sexual, even these revolting conversations that mothers have about, oh, they don't know what they are yet. They're 4. Why are you speculating about who they might want to sleep with when they're 18 or 45 in my children's case? But I think that's grotesque too. It'd be just great if we could just stop drugging kids.
Right.
This
is what I'm talking
really
about.
Basic.
This is what I'm talking about. Just basics. Stop drugging kids. Stop drugging adults. Statins, PPIs, whatever. We are just
statins for kids.
Statins for kids. We're legalized drug dealers, and it's just disgusting. And the biggest other thing that I'm really passionate about is the the mass industrial child sacrifice business that we've got going on. Abortions, 250,000 baby souls just killed, snuffed out in the UK, over 1 million in America. Like we look at people like in the Babylonian age and Aztecs and think, oh, they sacrificed babies. Well, no, we do. And for profit, and for cosmetic industry and pharmaceuticals and vaccines. And it's normalized. I mean,
that's because we've desacralized life.
Yes.
And we've sacralized fun. So the moment that you say life itself isn't precious, but really enjoying it this week is the severance, isn't it, of your soul?
Bingo. All right, listen, let's wrap up. I need to drop you off at the train station.
You do.
Thank God the internet thing has not crashed as yet. I'll just hold my breath.
That's so serious though, Don.
It's very serious. It's very serious. You're very serious for a comedian.
I know. I tell loads of jokes on Thursday, don't I? Yeah, it was actually, I don't know why I'm so serious. There we are.
Well, I think you've got a lot on your plate. Like I said, you're a tough cookie and you're going...
My teeny tiny plate.
Well, yeah, but you're going for a tough time. I've been there. It's not nice. I know, but still, I'm recognising that, like...
Yeah, but is this, you're not recording?
I am,
Oh, I don't record this. No one needs to wear.
Okay. But listen, moving on. There's the final question of the day that I need to talk to you about.
Yes.
And before I say that, actually, I would recommend people come and see you live.
Yeah.
I've only ever been to one comedy act, and that was last December. A guy called The Sundeep. You ever heard of him?
Yes.
He's amazing.
Well,
I love him.
Come and see Alistair and me. I'll stick you on the guest list. Doc.
Where, when, where, what?
March the 7th.
Okay, March 7th.
It's in London.
Fine.
It's the one closest to you.
Comedy store?
It's at Top Secret on Kingsway.
I have no idea where that is. Okay, fine.
I'll send you all of the details. I'll send you a map.
So, folks, I'm telling you right now, being in a live event is actually great fun. Because
it's really fun, and you'll meet lots of like-minded people as well.
I was just about to say that. You just stole that off me. You meet like-minded people, and it's just so fun. Like, you don't want to watch a beautiful sunset on your own. It's nice, but you want to share it with someone. And what better than sharing it in a room full of people who are all like-minded and enjoying wonderful people like you and Alistair? Because you guys are a rare breed amongst your profession, aren't they? I mean, they've let you guys down, like, in terms of, like, just like doctors and lawyers and everybody else. Most of them went along with the whole...
They didn't just go along with it. They sold it, they profited from it, and that still wasn't enough for them, because to even see that other people weren't profiting from it and taking advantage of it would make them feel bad. So they made it impossible for you to have a different opinion. And that continued and never stopped. I said to a friend of mine who's not in my industry, I understand that this isn't your fight. Just don't make it harder for people like me that are trying to say no to it. So do nothing, but don't actively make it difficult. And certainly in the arts, that it was made as hard as possible. And I don't even think that people were that collaborative. If they took a stand, they understood it was easier for them to take a stand alone. So Alistair is unusual in that he's very amusing and not tedious with his knowledge. He's really fun. He's excellent on stage, but he's also really interesting, and he's a good guy.
There you go.
Yeah,
folks. Right, last question of the day. Last one, I promise. So you're on your deathbed. This is serious.
Okay, I'm on my deathbed.
You're about to meet your maker, your creator, now that you're not an atheist anymore. Before you pass on to the other side, what words of wisdom and advice would you give to your loved ones around you?
Keep on trucking. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I haven't plotted my own death. I'm not vain enough. I'll think about dying later. And I don't know. I love you. I just tell my loved ones I love them.
That's nice. That's probably the shortest answer so far, but it's okay. It's good. It's a nice answer. Right, you heard it from her. Right, folks, check out her show. And where can people find you one more time?
TaniaEdwards.com. With an I. Tania with an I.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doc.
I, Ahmed Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts, and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations, and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only. Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence, and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and/or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.